Well, we couldn't go dark on you the entire week, and we know that Ian Parker wanted a little spotlight. So here we are. I guess we'll call it episode 224 and a hook, 224 and a half of the Anik and Florian podcast. YouTube only today as we look back at Moscow and look ahead to UFC Sao Paulo. John Anik alongside Ian Parker, both in South Florida, yet not together. We got Ken-Flo coming up in about 10 minutes. But Ian Parker front and center today. I mean, you can get used to this.
I can. You know what? I feel like this spotlight was kind of meant for this face. I don't have the voice for radio, but I got the face for TV, so this is perfect.
Yeah, you don't have a face for radio, right? I don't know if I would go so far as to say you have a face for television, as you just put it, but
I mean, I thought by saying movies would have been a little aggressive, so I gave myself television. You know, it could be reality television, could be telenovela, whatever. You know, just we got to get in there. You know, we can't hide this from the world anymore.
So this was a scheduled dark week for the Anik and Florian podcast. That's why this today is YouTube only, and you won't see it populate on iTunes later today. I think it's one of just 3 dark weeks we have scheduled in 2019, maybe 4. But I took my kids to Disney World on Monday, and fuck, if the Magic Kingdom is not the worst place on earth, right? And I don't want to offend the Disney World masses when I say this, right? And there's certainly, and sorry for the cough drop today, I'm just going to have to deal with that. But the adults who wish this upon themselves, who clog up the lines for these children, right? I mean, I don't want to disrespect this mass of people, but it's a very real part of the experience, the adults clogging up the line for children. And I'm just saying, as an adult, you wouldn't, I mean, I would pay thousands of dollars to never have to go there on my off day.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because when I go there with the kids as well, you know, I love seeing the kids. They're excited. But then you're right. You see like a bunch of teenagers, 20, 30-year-olds, whatever it is, like there with the ears waiting online at these kids things. Like, why do you need to meet Mickey if you're 30-something years old with no kids? Like, you know, I get it.
Oh, well, and I'm not even talking about the teenagers, right? I think they get a pass. But hey, it is what it is.
50-year-olds?
We went on a day, the day after Veterans Day. We actually went to Orlando Monday, went to the parks on Tuesday, so it wasn't too crowded. But 3 kids, 8 and under, including a 1.5-year-old. Wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. You know, my wife, what a trooper. I mean, her arms just spaghetti, right? You know, from carrying the kid all day. I do the best I can, but I'm not that strong. So she carries a lot of that burden.
Dude, isn't it amazing how the moms always get stuck carrying the kids on the hip, even though you got the stroller, everything, they still want to be carried. It's terrible, but better them than us, right?
Yeah. I try to help her in spurts as best I could, but I know people aren't necessarily tuning in for Disney World talk as much as they are wanting to hear some thoughts on Calvin Kattar and Zabit Magomedsharipov, which was now 5 days ago, the main event that was 3 rounds in Moscow. And part of the hard part when we are dark is we don't get to turn around on Monday and give our fresh thoughts on this fight. I think largely it went down the way most people expected it to, that there wouldn't necessarily be a lot of grappling involved. Kattar came on late, as in theory he really would have done in rounds 4 and 5 if they existed. But Zabit Magomedsharipov still proven to be something special for me, and so many different weapons in his arsenal that gives strikers, even as qualified as Kattar, some pause. And clean, unanimous decision for Zabit over the weekend, kid.
Yeah, you know, listen, Zabit, both guys are such good prospects for the division. You know, I don't think this is going to really set Kattar back at all. If anything, this is going to help him. That the one thing about Zabit that impressed me the most was the striking in the beginning, you know, but that takedown in round, what was it, 3, where he did that like spinning back leg sweep to take the back, super impressive. The issue I have is you're in a main event, that needs to be 5 rounds, all right? Because someone like Zabit's telling everyone, I want the title shot, I want the title shot.
Right.
But this is now the second time in a row, I believe, we're seeing him in the 3rd round fade. And honestly, I think he would have lost to Bosniak had that fight gone rounds 4 and 5. Definitely to Calvin Kattar. Kattar looked like he was just really getting his rhythm going. He was landing everything. Even on when he got taken down, and I know I forgot who mentioned this, but 100% spot on. Go back and watch the fight. Kattar got taken down and was outstriking Zabit a lot to a little. The elbow, ton of damage from the bottom. You know, it's for me, where I took away from that fight is that Kattar belongs. Zabit
no doubt.
Zabit belongs, but Zabit should not get a title shot. I think he needs to maybe fight Yair Rodriguez, do that fight. And I would like to see Calvin Kattar maybe fight a guy like Jeremy Stevens, you know, I think something like that. But I think both guys prove themselves worthy of being in the, in the upper part of that division. You know, I did pick Calvin Kattar, and Kenny and I discussed that if it was a 5-round fight, probably would have been in his favor. And as you advertised, it literally went as we all predicted. So, but I hope that Zabit's not next in line for a title shot. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think you put it well. I certainly think Calvin Kattar's name belongs with the featherweight elite. He thought he was going to be fighting Jeremy Stephens a couple months ago, and ultimately that fight went to Yair Rodriguez. So I think there are definitely legs in terms of a matchup between Kattar and Stephens, two guys now both coming off a loss. You sort of complained about the 3-round nature of the fight, and in one breath, I would say it was contracted for 3. In another breath, I would say Zabit was the guy who needed to forcibly move this fight back a few weeks and not compete in Kattar's hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, but to compete in Moscow, right? So you knew Kattar wanted to go 5. He's a 5-round fighter, which Zabit hasn't necessarily proven to be. So, your complaint doesn't necessarily fall on deaf ears, but I do believe there's some strategy involved. You as a former MMA manager can certainly attest to that. And I'm not sure if you were calling the shots for Zabit that you would have advised him on relatively short notice when this fight got elevated to fight 5 instead of 3. It wasn't in his best interest.
Yeah, from a manager standpoint, you got to do what's best for your fighter in situations. Something tells me that if they didn't agree to a 3-rounder, I don't know if this fight would have taken place. At the same time, though, you also have to be realistic towards your client and be like, listen, if you're going to do this as a 3-round fight, do not expect the UFC to give you a title shot if you don't finish him. He didn't starch Kattar. Kattar at no point was in any danger of being finished. And not saying that's Kattar's a tall task for anyone in that division. But if you're going to get, that's the first time I think out of maybe 1 or 2 other instances that really wasn't a short notice fight. Both guys were training, look at Yair and Jeremy Stephens. Their fight remained 5 rounds, even though they trained, the fight got not canceled, but it ended early. They turned it around a few weeks later, went 5 rounds. I know the whole contract stuff is there. You got to protect your fighter, but be realistic. Zabit cannot do as of right now. And if anyone wants to argue this with me, I'm willing to go toe to toe. At no point has he shown us yet in his career that he can go 5 rounds yet. Because Max Holloway or Alexander Volkanovski, whoever is the champ, they can both go 5 rounds with ease with cardio. Zabit, no way.
Most fighters would argue, though, that a training camp for a 5-round fight just takes on a totally different flavor. And this obviously was supposed to be Junior Dos Santos versus Alexander Volkov. And in the nature of time, that brings us to Alexander Drago Volkov, a winner in the co-main event by unanimous decision over Greg Hardy, 30-27 times 3. So I had a couple drinks. I'm not going to lie. I was at a family party day drinking, actually. And I wasn't watching. I was watching on an iPad, right? So I wasn't like my scorecard matters, but I thought there might have been an early round 1 or 2 in there for Greg Hardy, if memory serves. What did you think of Greg Hardy against Alexander Volkov? I mean, Hardy was never in any real imminent danger either.
I take that. You know what? I take the show must go on, right?
How many square feet do you have? I mean, you don't have to tell our listeners. I know you got a lot of square feet. The problem with these Florida houses, right? And Ian Parker's house is bigger and more expensive than mine, for the record. But the problem with these Florida houses, we don't have basements, right? So it's not always easy to find a place to smoke marijuana or do a podcast when you have children, right? And clearly you have not succeeded in getting away from the noise of your children.
Even when I'm on the opposite side of the house, whatever it is, somehow and the walls are paper thin. It's crazy. I think they just got to give her food and she's good. I don't know what's going on over there.
See, I got a baby monitor right here. See, my son is asleep. My wife is gone. And as long as he doesn't wake up, we're good.
We have our babysitter here and she's great. And it's so funny. She just texted me. She goes, sorry, try to keep her quiet. Yeah. But, here's the thing with Greg Hardy. It's a shame that he hurt his hand. He didn't complain about it. I don't think he's made excuses about it. Again, I'm not trying to defend the Greg Hardy bad guy that people want to keep placing that label on him, but I thought this was a pretty good, I think he kind of rose to the occasion well.
He did.
Yeah, he didn't get finished. He looked comfortable. He ate all the shots. Volkov landed plenty of clean shots. And to your point, I thought Greg Hardy round 1 was kind of close. He landed that. First off, that left hook he has, that jumping left hook landed 3 times. Volkov's head went 360 exorcist style. I thought he was going to drop him, so kind of kudos for Volkov for strengthening that chin since that Derek Lewis debacle. But I think it showed us Greg Hardy can compete at a much higher level than what he's competing at. I think it's a good test to show that he fought someone who's very technical, who's fought all levels of competition. I don't really think it did anything for Volkov's career, to be honest with you, but he looked good. You know, it was a year off for him. He came back. He fought someone that was kind of a wild card, kind of dangerous. You know, it's kind of like with Gregor Gillespie, like fighting a Kevin Lee was Kevin Lee fighting a Gillespie was kind of a no-win situation for him unless he did something drastic, and he did. Volkov didn't finish, but he looked good. He was careful. He was very safe with it. But I think Greg Hardy's got a lot of potential. That athleticism, you just can't teach it. You know,
I agree.
You just can't. And I think people, if you want to keep hating on the guy, I think that he should get MMA respect at this point. You know, because he just fought Volkov. A lot of guys, big name guys, have been finished, and 3 rounds. I don't know if it was a broken hand or something with his wrist, but you saw he was fighting with one hand, threw good leg kicks. He ate it. He didn't do anything stupid. You know, the IQ was there. So I'm taking that as a good education for him. Didn't really take much damage other than the hand that he did to himself. And I think he's going to be very dangerous. Give him, I mean, what is he, the first year into his career? Dude, let's see him around this time next year, you know, healthy, completely ready to go. He's going to be a scary guy, you know.
First UFC heavyweight with 5 appearances in a calendar year, 5 training camps. I mean, 2 of those were abbreviated, but good on Greg Hardy. And on the other side for Alexander Volkov, obviously he had been out a while, but this performance doesn't necessarily put you in any great rush, I wouldn't think, to see him in a championship setting.
Oh, no, not yet. And I think he would probably agree. He's a smart guy. He seems to be pretty realistic with his career. You know, there's a couple of fights out there that I'm going to be curious to see where he falls, you know, with Alistair Overeem versus Rosenstrike. You know, you got Blades fighting Junior Dos Santos. He could fight the winner of any of those. You know, I think he's 2 fights away from a title. I mean, he lost to Lewis. Decisioning Greg Hardy doesn't get you any closer. I think maybe depends on who they give him next and how he does. 3 fights. If he gets 3 straight wins, 2 out of those are finishes, I could see it happening. He'll be deserving. He's been around long enough. He's done the right thing, and he's got the talent. You know, he's got.
All right. Well, speaking of talent, we don't want to keep a good man waiting. Now joining us live, the co-host of this Anik and Florian podcast. If there was a jiu-jitsu tournament today, he'd be standing on the top of the fucking podium. He is the great Kenny Florian. Ken-Flo!
Woo!
What's up, boys? The podcast has been my good luck charm. That's what it is.
I'm telling you.
Ian Parker's my good luck charm. I think that's what it is.
You hear this? Wait, I want to start off by saying with this new format, I got a compliment to lead off Ken-Flo's little monologue here. Kenny, I love you, bro. I love you.
So I'm having
What's up,
an Ian Parker overdose here, and we're only like 12 minutes in. So it's good to hear your voice. And congratulations again on another jiu-jitsu competition. And again, hey, if you're entering, you might as well go home with the gold medal and be on the top of the podium. So we're very happy as you sort of work your way towards the no-gi jiu-jitsu world championships later this year. But in the nature of time, because I know you don't have a ton of it, I just want to get your thoughts quickly on Zabit Magomedsharipov against Calvin Kattar, the main event 5 days ago. You know, I know a lot of commentary after the fact has been about what might have changed if this fight was 5 rounds, but it was 3, and I think you need to fight it as such. What were your thoughts on Zabit and Kattar in Moscow, kid?
Yeah, you know, it was interesting. I felt like Kattar took a little bit too long to get going, and he really turned it on in that 3rd round, and I think that it really could have been avoided by Zabit if he stuck to his game plan of keeping Kattar on the outside, sticking and moving. It seemed like he engaged Kattar because he got into this kind of machismo role of trying to outbox Kattar, and that's just not what you want to do. Calvin definitely had a sharper boxing. It seems like he was hitting or cracking much harder than Zabit. And you know, listen, Zabit definitely showed a great chin, but he also showed that he's a very proud fighter at times. And, you know, if you want to be consistent in this sport and if you want to be a champion, you have to fight to your strength. And I think that was the only weakness that I saw in Zabit was kind of this willingness to play to Kattar's strength.
So a couple other things, Greg Hardy, Alexander Volkov. I think we were both pretty impressed with Hardy's ability to make the quick turn and go 15 minutes with a top 7 heavyweight in the world. Any further thoughts on Greg Hardy, and does it change your opinion at all in terms of his UFC ceiling?
I would say this. I would say, Greg Hardy clearly needs to get better. He's still very new at this sport. You could see that. He kind of kept throwing the same combination over and over again. Physically, he's still impressive. The fact that he was able to get a quick turnaround and go against a guy like a Volkov, who is a tough matchup for any heavyweight, and hang in there, I thought looked good for him. And personally, I thought this was a performance that Greg Hardy seemed humble. He seemed appreciative of the opportunity. There was no controversy really. He came off just, I thought, looking like a guy who truly wants to be good at this. He took the opportunity, and despite the loss, I think for himself, for his career, I thought he came off pretty well after this.
Obviously, we're doing an abbreviated episode today. Did you happen to see the highlight of that front kick from Magomed Ankalaev against the South African Dalcha Lungiambula, Ken-Flo?
That was ridiculous, and I don't know how you said both of those last names without
oh my God,
without making a mistake. But Ankalaev, first of all, I was very impressed with his overall striking and volume. This is a guy who was very calculated. And definitely someone to watch. But man, that front kick was brutal. You could see that something was coming. He was definitely trying to develop some kind of finishing combination. And ultimately it was that front kick and that follow-up strike, which was absolutely nasty. But he's someone to watch, man. I was really impressed. I was very, very impressed.
All right, 2 more minutes here with Ken-Flo. I want to get your thoughts on the fight announcement. January 25th, I believe, in North Carolina, Corey Sandhagen welcoming the former lightweight champion Frankie Edgar to the bantamweight division. Many people, Mark Henry among them, have wanted to see Frankie at 135 pounds for years. He always resisted that in the hopes that he would become a featherweight champion. That did not materialize. But Ken-Flo, I mean, this is Frankie at his core, right? Taking on all comers, taking on a fight in Corey Sandhagen that not a lot of bantamweights, I would think, are lining up for right now.
No, and Corey Sandhagen might be the bigger guy heading into this fight, which is crazy. This is a tough one for me because I have so much admiration for Frank Edgar. I feel like this is one of those contests where the UFC is trying to figure out what they have in Frank Edgar. Is this a guy who is going to challenge for a belt at 135 pounds? Or is this guy now a stepping stone, a former legend who Corey Sandhagen can kind of defeat and then, become a potential future champion? I think Sandhagen is someone to watch at 135 pounds. I think he's going to be a handful for anybody. The way that he mixes it together is as good as anybody in the game. He's only getting better. He's been cross-training with some guys that I know, and I know this is a guy that's a lifelong martial artist that is only going to get better. And this is a tough fight for Frankie. Of course, if there's one guy who can make it to the top and become a champion in another division, it is Frankie Edgar. I would love to see that, but this is not an easy matchup by any means, man. This is a tough one, and it's going to tell a lot.
Sandhagen is truly married to the game, and I just gotta love Frankie though. Aljamain Sterling, I'll fight him in New York City. Oh, that doesn't materialize. Give me Corey Sandhagen, maybe the most dangerous fight for a lot of people in that division. All right, last thing, Ken-Flo, before we let you go. I know how humble you are, but in terms of Meraki BJJ, this jiu-jitsu school that you and Jason Hunt founded a few years ago, when you set out on a project like this, right, I'm sure you have expectations for attendance and membership and creating the vibe that you want when you make this type of commitment in California, where I know land is not cheap. And I see these pictures on the mat last night, and it's standing room only, and it's a packed house. It seems like your vision didn't take that long to come to fruition. I don't know if you've exceeded expectations, man, but tip of the cap from me, because it seems like you're executing everything you set out to there in LA.
Dude, thank you so much. No, we've been super lucky. The community in the west side of Los Angeles has really embraced our vision, and people are signing up like crazy, especially in regards to our adult program is massive right now. Our main goal now is to really grow our kids program, and it has been growing, and we think that could be another big aspect of the business. And, thankfully, sometimes when you open up a jiu-jitsu gym, a mixed martial arts gym, you never know what kind of, people are going to join and all that stuff. And we've built such a good community of people, like just not only the quality of the practitioners, but also the quality of the community, just very, very good people that are helpful from all different backgrounds. And there's nothing like jiu-jitsu, even more so than golf or anything, where you can bring so many different people together and be on the mat and kind of all have the same vision. It's been awesome, man. So thank you.
Good stuff, my man. All right, well, get back to it, buddy. We appreciate a few minutes, and we will talk to you in the usual time slot here coming up in 4 days, kid. Thanks, my man.
Absolutely. See you guys.
All right, there he is.
Man, that's amazing.
Anik Florian.
That's amazing with his gym. I was going to say, when he's ready to franchise that out,
you're the guy to talk to.
We'll do a little Shark Tank situation here.
Hey, by the way, when I was pointing to you, that means like your turn to ask Ken-Flo a question if you want, by the way.
I thought you were telling me to like shut up or freeze or something. My bad.
So I appreciate my man Mike Heck stepping up and producing this content for us today. And, I don't know how he feels about radio and production. And you're my dear friend, so I can bust your balls and fucking knock your balls. But you're moving the fuck around. Like, if this was on iTunes, it'd be a fucking nightmare. You're moving around on YouTube. Like, I don't know, man. Like, why are you moving around?
No, I was catching feedback. Mike sent me a text and he was catching feedback. So what I tried to do was I went into my panic room where the feedback is less. I was trying to discreetly, while he muted me, lower the volume and go into a better situation for the show.
Okay. I know you are all hands on deck for the Anik and Florian podcast, and you know how much I appreciate your commitment. So between now and Monday, we just got to find a location for you.
I already got it planned out.
All
Trust me.
Okay.
This is like I said, when it comes to this, I want this to be the best show ever. He just texted me, I'm good now. So that was for the great.
Yeah, it sounds better.
So we got our spot.
But eventually you'll have a Cage Hero comic book right behind you for every show. I mean, let's maximize the opportunity.
I got the Cage Hero banner already ordered, ready to go. I'll wear my Anik and Florian Team Parker shirt. Let's make it happen. So
it's been such a busy year for me calling fights. I don't think I will or have ever called as many UFC live events than I will call in 2019.
Crazy.
But it was so nice to sit around and watch this show and watch a guy like Danny Roberts as a betting underdog do what he did against Alimi Madaev.
Crazy.
Right? A lifer like Danny Roberts, who is putting in the time, and you get to know these guys a little bit. You want them to have moments like this, and felt really good for Danny Roberts. How about Ed Herman still getting it done? I mean, Anthony Rocco Martin now 5-1 as a UFC welterweight. He cashes as a slight underdog. A lot of headlines came out. I mean, a lot of headlines come out of every UFC show, but lot to like out of that Moscow show. Anything you want to give a little bit more on before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, someone like Ed Herman, it's kind of amazing. He's the last, sole survivor from the Ultimate Fighter series, whether it was that group or in general. And he took on a young prospect that definitely had holes, and Ed just battled it out. It's great to see someone like him still be able to impose his will and get wins. He doesn't complain about the competition. With Anthony Rocco Martin, I will tell you, the thing that kind of hit me at home at the end was obviously dealing with a family member who's battling cancer, and check off the bucket list. Oh, you throwing up over there? So a quick puking back in. Yeah. For someone like Rocco Martin, that was a big win for him. He was going against a really highly regarded wrestling prospect, and based on what we saw against the Damian Maia fight, we kind of expected the blueprint there, get taken down. I will tell you that jab that his opponent was throwing at him was working, but man, that calf kick has been really that new story told strategy-wise. And it's funny because against wrestlers, you would think they could grab the ankle, do a quick pick, and get a takedown. But that calf kick is becoming second nature to almost – I'm shocked at this point that not every fighter is trying to do that. Big ups to him. It sucks what he's going through. I'm glad he got the win for himself. He's always game for a step up in competition. That knockout, that front kick into that punch combo was from a video game. That was hard to watch, but unbelievable. Yeah. That for a card that wasn't supposed to be anything, so many cool highlights. Danny Roberts, kudos to you. He got unlucky in the Pereira fight to bounce back like this as an underdog with that type of knockout. Woof, good for him.
Well, and to be able to watch MMA in the morning for me, too, I was able to ingest a lot of the prelims. How about Carl Robertson? Great performance by him to get the submission there after the foul to his eye. David Zawada upsetting Abubakar Nurmagomedov.
That was crazy.
We could obviously do 45 minutes on the Moscow show, but we're going to move on to UFC Fight Night. Blachowicz versus Jacare. So after the fights this weekend, 2 days from now, the UFC's going dark for 2 weeks. So the anticipation for December 7th, UFC Fight Night, Overeem versus Rosenstrike, Washington, D.C., is going to be off the charts. So enjoy this weekend, right? Because we're ending a stretch of 10 or 11 straight weekends with a UFC live event, and then we're going dark for a couple weeks. Podcast won't be dark, so don't worry about that. All right, Jan Blachowicz, the number 6th ranked light heavyweight in the world, taking on the 8th ranked middleweight Jacare Souza, moving up. I don't think size is necessarily going to be a huge issue. You and Ken-Flo did both give your picks on the podcast last week. You both went with Blachowicz, middle round, TKO. I think one of you had round 2, one of you had round 3. But what are your expectations on the Jacare Souza side? Can he be a top 10 light heavyweight? Can he be a light heavyweight contender? What do you think as he tries to sort of inject new life into his career here at 39 years old?
I mean, he's got an opportunity to do so. Blachowicz is ranked high, for knocking out another middleweight a big middleweight Luke Rockhold that came up there and Jan imposed his will and landed one of the crazier knockouts I think we've seen all year. For Jacare right now, he's not that same dominant guy that we saw even a year ago. Even the fight against, Chris Weidman where he won, he was not winning that fight until that last round. Jan Blachowicz, the confidence is there. Between fighting Thiago Santos, coming back, knocking out Luke Rockhold. This is a great opportunity for Blachowicz to get another big name on his resume. And for Jacare, I think we know what the answer is for him. He's got to put Blachowicz on his back. He's got to keep him there. Blachowicz is good in his own right at grappling. Very, very underrated with his strength and his athleticism, which is big for that division. I don't know. Jacare's never fought at 205, if I'm correct. And on top of that, I've never once heard anyone say this dude's big for middleweight. You've heard that about Chris Weidman. You've heard about Luke Rockhold, that their frames, they fill out. Haven't heard that about Jacare. So I'm curious to what his walk-around weight is and whether or not he could just take a piss and make weight. Because in a fight against Blachowicz, who carries the power, has had success in this division, fought at the top. I mean, if I'm Blachowicz and I didn't get the fight with John Jones, to me, this seems to be one of the more favorable opportunities for him. The question is, if he starches Jacare, right? We know Reyes is getting Jones next. Do you do Blachowicz then versus Anthony Smith for the number 1 contender? Do you do Blachowicz versus a Corey Anderson? Because I think for Jacare, I'm a little nervous for him. I don't know if this, if he can't get this fight to the ground, I do think Blachowicz will knock him out.
Crazy to think where we were 2.5 years ago, leaving UFC 210 in Buffalo, New York. It was April of 2017. Jan Blachowicz loses a majority decision to Patrick Cummins. At that point, he had lost 4 of 5 in the UFC. I don't know if he was in danger of being cut necessarily, but never good when you lose 2 straight in a 5-fight span twice. And now he's won 5 of 6, obviously capstone by the huge knockout of Luke Rockhold. But you see some of the guys, Nikita Krylov, Jimmy Manuwa, Jared Cannonier. I mean, this is high-level competition. Did get stopped by Thiago Marreta Santos earlier this year, but a huge opportunity for Jan Blachowicz at 36 years old to close what has been an outstanding couple years. And again, I do think he's on the short list of potential John Jones challengers. Certainly Reyes is going to be next. Corey Anderson beckons perhaps, but if Blachowicz wins this weekend, you roll your eyes at Corey Anderson. What's the problem?
I do, because, someone like Corey Anderson, I've been a fan of his. I do like Corey. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he had that moment where he lost his mind a little bit, where he had a moment of glory, where he could have done what Adesanya did. Instead, he made himself, he went from making fans love him to hate him quicker than possibly any fighter in the history of the sport. That quick, But still, Johnny Walker was ranked number 11. He did not knock out even a top 10 guy. So for me, that was a perfect statement for Corey Anderson to be like, listen, you line him up, I'll knock him down. But you can't go from 11 to 1. This was like, remember when Bisping fought Dan Henderson? Everyone was like, why the fuck is Henderson getting a title shot? Who did he beat? Hector Lombard by accident?
Right.
And he skipped a huge line. I think he was ranked like 12 at the time. There's too many guys in between that apparently Corey has turned down. Now, whether that's true or not, if I'm Corey Anderson, I need to do something other than knock out Walker that forces this. Go fight Anthony Smith. If Alexander Gustafsson's available, you've got to fight guys that have either fought for the title, float around that top 5, because I don't think he's gotten a knockout in how long. Before that, who did he beat? Patrick Cummins, whatever it is. It's like you can't say that beating a prospect ranked number 11, you can't jump over Anthony Smith. You can't jump over even Volkan Ozdemir. You know, there's a lot of other guys that are also beating not top 10 guys. So for Corey Anderson, he did absolutely the best thing he could do by knocking out Walker. But now do that with top 5 guys, so there's no even like regret or no decision to be made. Because again, I don't mean to rant, but he hasn't proven to be the most marketable individual either. You know, I mean, shit, his dancing skills even were terrible. You know,
Yeah, not great.
Not great. You know, at least Johnny Walker did the work. This guy did some really awkward. You know, shit, I'm short, white, and Jewish, and I could do a better body roll than that. You know, it's like, you know, come on, man, you get a knockout like that. If he would have called out Anthony Smith after knocking out Walker, guarantee you everyone would have cheered him. And all of a sudden now he's the guy that people want to watch, and he's calling out competition. Like Adesanya calling out Yoel Romero. Look at the difference. That's all I'm going to say with that.
Well, and how about Israel Adesanya calling out Paulo Costa, the number 1 contender, the all-time great move, calling out the undefeated, dangerous number 1 contender. Gotta love the last style bender. No, I think you bring up some good points. And if Corey Anderson calls for the Anthony Smith fight as a main event, he's got a 5-round style, right? I think main eventing and headlining is an opportunity that guys don't insist upon more often, right? It's like, all right, well, I've won 4 in a row at 205. I just beat Johnny Walker, who was all the rage. I understand you don't want to give me a title fight, but let me headline in Raleigh, North Carolina, or let me headline, you know?
Exactly. You know, if you're not a Conor McGregor or a Nate Diaz, where you can get on the microphone and bring everyone in, then you got to do it through your fighting. And knocking out, if he would have knocked out Walker, said nothing, and just been like, I told you so, you know, and say, by the way, Anthony Smith, I'll see you. Remember what Anthony Smith did? Anthony Smith said, you know, Alexander Gustafsson, I'll see you in your backyard in 2 months. UFC, make it happen. All of a sudden, a guy in Lionheart that did not have a successful career really at middleweight jumps up to 205. What did he knock out? Shogun, Rashad, and he was asking for it, not complaining. That was the difference. So to your point, and I agree with you, ask for the main event, ask for a top 5 guy, and if you're not going to be the trash talker on Twitter or the Conor McGregor on the mic or the Nate Diaz personality, which is okay, you don't have to, then go out there and finish guys or put on outstanding performances that can't deny where you are.
Right. All right, a couple other highlights on the ESPN Plus card this weekend from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Just want to get your thoughts on whether or not there's any underdog value. So got a featured bout in the lightweight division. Charles do Bronx Oliveira, number 13 in the world, is the minus 370 favorite against Jared Flash Gordon. The New Yorker is plus 295. That is a big number for Jared Gordon. Light heavyweight co-main event. Shogun Hua, 14th in the world, minus 275 against Paul Bear Jew Craig, who is plus 215. Bear Jew, Jared Flash Gordon, any value on either of those dogs this weekend?
Personally, I love Jared Gordon's story. You know, I've spoken to him several times. He's such a nice, humble guy. He wants to be right.
Absolutely love him.
Everything for a great cause. And I think this is a huge opportunity for him. I think it's, you know, man, the problem is that, you know what, maybe it's not a problem. Would I say bet on Jared Gordon? No. Personally, on a betting standpoint, I think I would parlay Oliveira with another big favorite, just because Oliveira has fought way high-level competition throughout his career. Obviously, he can submit anyone at any time, and I think Gordon tends to fight down to his competition. Like that last fight, he could have out-wrestled that guy for 3 rounds. Instead, it ended up being a split decision win, if I'm correct, where the fight should not have been that close. I think Jared Gordon can perform way better, and I think he acknowledged that. Charles Oliveira's striking has gotten way better. His fight IQ with the striking, keeping the distance, using that push kick, can give someone like Gordon fits. Because if you have a guy who's that rangy, can put it together on the strike, the minute you shoot in, even if he puts Oliveira on his back, Oliveira is one of the best at jiu-jitsu, and his cardio is proven to get better as well. Gordon tends to fade a little bit. He's tough as nails. I think his recklessness striking may help him here if he can get on the inside. I just see such a disparity in the advantage-disadvantage where the ground game is, and Gordon being a wrestler, that I think Oliveira is going to win this fight. I actually don't understand these matchups for Charles Oliveira. It's like he beats Jim Miller after submitting another guy, submitting Nick Lentz. It's kind of like, why are we not giving him a top 5, top 7 guy at this point? I'm a little confused by the matchmaking with Oliveira. At first, I thought it was so he won it so he could break the record and keep it going. Right. But apparently he complained about the level of competition he's receiving. So I don't know. Maybe you could shed some light on that if you've heard anything on your end.
Well, every time I call his fights, right, he says to me either by phone or in person, I still want to compete at featherweight. I still want to compete for the featherweight title. So he still refuses to close the book on 145 pounds.
Okay.
I think there are guys who don't want to fight him at 55, right? So I think he's not the easiest guy to get people to sign on the dotted line to face, never mind in Sao Paulo. So I think maybe there's something there. But we'll see what Jared Gordon can do with the opportunity. He thinks his ground game can hold up. You know, brown belt under John Danaher, trains under Renzo Gracie, or at least used to several years ago, right? And has continued those skills with Daniel Vanderlei there at Rufus Sport in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So we'll see. But if you're asking me, which you're not, if I see value on Jared Flash Gordon, a guy who is as tough and relentless as he is in the plus 300 range, I see value on Jared Gordon in a plus 300 range against almost any man at 145 pounds just because of his toughness and his ability to connect with a shot. You know, he's got to play defense a little bit better. And obviously with Oliveira's improved stand-up skills, his chin's going to be tested.
Your point's valid. Listen, most guys in this range, especially in the UFC with the 4-ounce gloves, there is always value. There's always that chance, right? And the way that I would play this on a betting standpoint, let's say you were to parlay Oliveira, maybe Shogun, and maybe Blachowicz, right? And then you want to do – so if you have Oliveira, Shogun, Blachowicz, you got 3 big favorites as an even money parlay, right? You know, if you want to throw some money on Jared Gordon to kind of protect it, I'm okay with that. You know, it's just, for me, if you were to take away the odds completely, which is how I try to really look at these matchups, I pick Oliveira 10 out of 10 times. And that's not a knock on Jared Gordon. Like I said, I hope he wins. Like, even if I bet on Oliveira, if Jared wins, what a phenomenal story, and he deserves it. It's great. It's kind of like sometimes I just don't see where he wins this fight. You know, I don't know if his ground game can really contain the submission skills of Oliveira. That's kind of where I look at it. But I don't disagree with you, though. There's always a value in underdog based on the skill set and the style.
All right, before we get out of here, you may have seen me posting on Instagram about the pilot for John Anik's MMA Charity Challenge. I'm excited about this. It's coming up this weekend. So the first event for the Fight Night card this weekend is completely free. If you do win the competition, you'll win a meet and greet with me, my tickets to the UFC card in Washington, D.C. on December 7th. If you can't do that show, we'll work something out for a future UFC event. But big picture, I just want to give you 2 minutes, probably less, on what exactly this MMA Charity Challenge is. So it's an online game. Free for this week. It'll probably be like $5 going forward. But by playing and predicting the outcome of MMA fights, you are donating to our host charity, which is obviously a good thing. And you're also entered into a prize sweepstakes as well. The game, you'll play against me, Ian Parker, other UFC talent, fighters, guest celebrities. Vinny Del Negro is playing. If you're an NBA fan, that's all you need to know. But here's what you have to do. All you have to do before November 16th, you register for free, rivalsmedia.com/MMA-challenge. That website is on my Instagram and Twitter pages as well. Ian's going to populate the Anik and Florian podcast pages with it as well. rivalsmedia.com/MMA-challenge. You pick the winners, I think 4 or 5 fights this weekend, number of rounds, how each fight will end. You can then follow your picks on the leaderboard that night. And obviously the big hope and plan is that this is going to be the first of many events on the platform where we raise money for causes and charities. So plenty more details to come on that. Some people have asked if there will be cash prizes. I love the true bettors out there. There are not going to be cash prizes. We're using this, of course, as a platform to raise money for charity. But all the prizing is legitimate. It will be experiential in nature. So hanging with me during a fight week, tickets to an event, airfare, things like that. But again, if you want to play this weekend, test yourself against handicappers like Ian Parker, Jeremy Roenick. Help us test the game. We'd love to have you. rivalsmedia.com/MMA-challenge. Also, Ian Parker is happy to let you know that if you live in South Florida, come watch the fights with us. We are having a low-key casual watch party for the fights. Hijinks Sports Grill this Saturday night for the main card, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern, East Boca Raton, Florida, 133 Southeast Meisner Boulevard, Boca Raton, Florida, 33432. My man, UFC featherweight Chaz Skelly is going to be there. Hopefully some other UFC talent as well. I think all people really need to know is that Ian Parker is going to be there. I think that's enough of a draw.
Yeah, listen, when you compare legends like Vinny Del Negro, Jeremy Roenick, the Ian Parker name definitely fits in there.
I think so.
100%. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Vinny Del Negro, incidentally, will not be at Hijinks Sports Grill. But we're excited to be doing this, right? And I don't know what type of turnout we're going to have, obviously, in terms of UFC fans and who on relatively short notice can make the trek. But we're hoping for 50 or 100 people or so, and we're going to bang it out. We're going to test the pilot and the game and see what people think. And if there are things you want to complain about, please let us know so we can try to fix them going forward. But we're excited about this. I've always been looking for sort of a charitable initiative, and maybe this will be the one. You know, I think a lot will be told after how the pilot goes this weekend, but I'm excited to be a part of the team. And again, rivalsmedia.com/MMA-challenge. All right, Ian Parker, we'll give you the last word here as our co-host today. See, I didn't call you a fill-in co-host because you're not filling in. You're part of the show every week, just like Longo now. Anything else, any final words before we let you fly and get back to your fine children?
Yeah, no, listen, it's been quiet. It's been nice. One, glad to not just be a fill-in, but to be a staple of this show. I appreciate it. Hope I'm doing you guys proud. I'm hoping everyone enjoys this. I love the chemistry between the three of us. And Longo, though I haven't had a chance to interact with Longo yet on the show, maybe we surprise him one time. You know, we bring him on. I go, hey, Longo. Yeah. So we just kind of, I'll talk as Ray. We won't tell him who it is, make him guess. But this Saturday is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it with you. Obviously, Chas Kelly and I will be betting heavily with each other. Yeah, we've already kind of talked that out. He's a great guy, man. What an awesome dude. And I'm pumped. And listen, I think this is a pretty fun card. I think cards like this sometimes fly under the radar, you know, because you don't have the biggest names on there. But a lot of betting opportunities here, which is always fun. And who doesn't want to hang out with John Anik live, watching fights? I still think one time we should counter program a UFC one. You and I go on Instagram Live, and we put it on mute, and we do the commentating for the fights while the fights are going on.
Oh, I just want to enjoy the fights. I mean, yeah, I guess, you know, Rogan's Fight Companion, I think, has a lot of value. I would fly out to LA to do something like that. Yeah, maybe we could chop it up at one point.
I'm just kidding. That would just be fun.
Well, it's just I talk, right? Like sometimes I just want to not talk, right? And I can think of a lot of people that actually don't want to go to Hijinks Sports Grill and hang out with John Anik, but hopefully some of them do, and we can do that this weekend. And you can see me sort of out of my element a little bit. I will be drinking Don Julio on the rocks with a splash of pineapple juice. I'm flying to Vegas the next day. So,
bro, that's my drink. That's weird. That's
how about
weird.
that?
We do the same thing. That's weird.
That's a Dominic Cruz special right there. All right, we got to get out of here. Thanks to Mike Heck for stepping up to produce the content today. Back in our usual slot this Monday, November 18th. The show will be a little bit later because I will be filming live from Las Vegas. Ken-Flo will be back, Ray Longo Minute as well. And if you and Longo go head-to-head, I think my money's probably on Ray, but I think we should probably make that happen at some point.
Listen, Ray trained me back in the day. So
I know.
You know, and I think I might have a little bit of a speed advantage. The age thing I might play in my favor, but, you know, Ray's a magician, so I don't really want to fuck with him. But I definitely wouldn't mind getting on the phone and surprising him with a couple of questions.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Good cardio, that Ray Longo. All right, we'll be back with you Monday, November 18th, late in the day. We'll recap UFC Fight Night, Blachowicz versus Jacare, and tell you how it went with the pilot for John Anik's MMA Charity Challenge. Thank you all for watching. For Ian Parker, I'm John Anik. Ken-Flo and Longo back with us on Monday. Until then, don't text and drive. You later.